Hey guys, good afternoon. How's everyone doing today? Hope you're having a good day. Let me just quickly share my screen for you. Can you hear me? Can you confirm the audio? Hey, Living, I'm good, thank you, man. Perfect. I want to keep it very short, maybe like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that, because not much changed from yesterday, and it doesn't make much sense to do a macro stream on Wednesday and Thursday, if you know what I mean. But there were a few movements that I wanted to discuss with you guys. Just go over the main charts that we also covered yesterday, but there have been a few newer developments, especially in traditional financial markets. You have probably seen that already. And we had that decision by a court yesterday regarding tariffs put by Trump on his trading partners. They've been deemed as illegal somehow, and there was obviously a reaction to that by the Trump team. I think this could be some source of uncertainty in the next few days, especially if they go back and forth, right? Because it creates uncertainty for investors. Will tariffs stay on? Will they be removed by the court? That's a bit unclear, right? So that's something that we need to consider. I did a bit of de-risking today in stock positions. If you've been following my corner, you know what I'm talking about. We got a nice move by the S&P 500 from this area here at 5,700, moved by about 4.35%. Pretty good move for stock markets. I know if you focus too much on crypto, this might seem boring, but it's good for stock markets. But we had the first higher time frame bearish divergence here since this uptrend started, which is why I remain a bit cautious, especially below this 6,000 area, which still is some form of lower time frame resistance. Not concerned on a higher time frame from a long-term perspective, of course, but still did some profit taking. Sold 25% of my Nvidia today, which is up also like 60% from our buy zone from April. Came right into our higher time frame resistance area with a 12-hour bearish divergence. So it's a very, very good signal for me to take profits. Obviously, long term, not bearish on Nvidia, but I'm now 50% out of this position. So you can consider that I have a risk-free back, if you want to call it that way, more or less. Not exactly, but more or less. But a good zone to take something off. I think 65% is a very good area for stocks in 7 weeks, and 50% of my back in case this flips the previous all-time high area and goes into price discovery. But having the S&P 500 printing a bearish divergence on the 12-hour, seeing the same here, and with the uncertainty regarding tariffs, I think for me at least it's a good time to take something off. I did the same with Tesla. Just shared that under fundamentals, not with the recent call with Nodi. I'm still DCAing into that, but the first call that I made unofficially under fundamentals in early April, also up 70%, reached my first or my second higher time frame resistance zone, 70% up. Here we got a 12-hour bearish divergence as well, which is the first bearish divergence, at least higher time frame bearish divergence since this uptrend started. 70% gains, a really, really good area to take something off. Sold 50% of my back, leaving 50% for these highs and potentially a new all-time high, and still in the trade with Nodi. So been doing some profit taking in stock markets, not because I'm higher time frame necessarily bearish, but because it feels like a good time to pay myself a bit. I've got some good triggers to do so as well, so don't want to ignore my triggers. So that's the situation with stock markets. Other than that, we got the GDP print today. Given the recent headlines regarding that court decision about tariffs, the GDP print turned out to be less relevant than per usual. still negative, minus 0.2%, but we did expect it to be negative. I still think it's a temporary distortion because of all the imports that were made last month due to fear about tariffs. So I don't think the negative numbers reflect economic weakness, but we've been saying this before as well. So as of now, nothing to worry about, but we will see how these developments unfold regarding tariffs. Because as I said it this morning, if tariffs are deemed to be illegal and if they will not be taken into effect as expected by the Trump administration, I think this will have significant implications on monetary policy as well. Because the biggest reason why the Federal Reserve in the United States has decided to keep interest rates high is because of the possibility of inflation rising due to tariffs, right? And if tariffs cannot be maintained the way they're planned, then the Fed will not have this inflation pressure from tariffs and might decide to take some action and actually slow down quantitative tightening because of this. So we will see how this unfolds. I think it would be a rather positive news if tariffs are revoked. Of course, tariffs are never good for neither country because it constrains trading. It constrains a lot of trading because it's between the biggest economic entities in the world, right? And there are always economic and inflation projections that are influenced by tariffs. So it's always good to hear news that the tariffs are being revoked now. Is it the court? Is it the Trump administration seeing this as an exit from their trajectory? We don't know, right? It doesn't really matter. That's where it goes into speculation. We talk about facts, and the facts right now is that there's this court decision that might revoke tariffs, and we will keep monitoring that. But this is what I did in terms of TA. This is what I will be monitoring in the next days as well, because I think it will influence the crypto market. If this 12-hour bearish divergence plays out, then we could get a nice dip in stock markets as well. Last time the 12-hour RSI held the 50 area. We will see what happens if this plays out and the 50 area is lost and we get a full 12-hour RSI reset. I think we would really get some nice dips in stock markets as well. And if you find acceptance below this area here, then we will be looking for buy zones significantly lower. Not these lows or these lows, but maybe around here. I think this could be a nice zone if this area is lost. Too early to tell, of course, but we will be looking for something like this. Doesn't have to be this deep, right? Just planning ahead in case this is lost, but this is still support until proven otherwise. But this is my view on stock markets for now. Not many developments happened. We have PCE inflation data tomorrow. That should also be important. And if PCE inflation data is below expectations of 2.2%, while we have that court ruling against tariffs, that would be a pretty positive signal for a shift in monetary policy, right? Because inflation has already been declining. If PCE data shows that it's dropping again and tariffs are no longer in effect or are not planned to go into effect, I think that would have serious implications on monetary policy, and that could actually push the Federal Reserve to start cutting interest rates. What do you think about this? Fed's policy conference tariffs? Yeah, that's what I meant, right? That's exactly what I meant. This is the only argument that the Federal Reserve had until now regarding keeping interest rates high, right? They said we know that inflation has come down because it's facts, right? It's numbers, and the numbers they tell you a story. But the problem was always the projections about the future, because mathematically it's impossible for prices not to rise when there are tariffs, right? I mean, explain it to me. Of course, the weaker dollar can always offset these tariffs to a certain extent, but not fully cover them. So inflation was doomed to increase and is still doomed to increase if tariffs persist. So that's why I think these developments are very, very important. Regarding the crypto market, well, nothing really changed on a higher time frame. We've been talking about this level yesterday as well. As long as we're above this, nothing to worry about in my view. Only higher time frame acceptance below 105K for me would be bearish. If we get 105, I will potentially look for a long because I think the invalidation would be really easy. So what did we have today? We got a nice 3-day POC being tapped here. I don't have a divergence yet. At least not on the 30-minute. I don't look at the 5-minute. Doesn't tell me much. Not even 15-minute. I don't use these. Well, 30-minute and above. We had that yesterday. This is if you've been following on the fundamentals, we talked about this, right? And we had that nice idea for USDT dominance. Really clean divergence for Bitcoin, which was a nice scalp opportunity. You could have caught like almost a 2K move, right? More or less. But this is just a lower time frame. It's I mean, on the higher time frame, nothing really much is happening. We've been trading at more or less the same levels in the market for weeks, which forces me to give out some lower time frame ideas as well. So what we could do here, for instance, if we get a bullish divergence at 106K, I would be more interested to long this. But ideally, I wanna try these POCs here at 105, 105.2K. But higher time frame idea doesn't change. Ethereum, higher time frame, same. 2,700, 2,800 is for me. Let's do this. Let's discuss the spot chart on a higher time frame, and then the future charts on a lower time frame. Higher time frame, nothing changes, right? 2,800, 2,700, big resistance zone. We wait for the flip and then look for retest to buy spot. Lower time frames, again, what I'm ideally looking at to long Ethereum would be this zone that we discussed yesterday at 2,550 fib level. We got some POCs there as well. But what I will also consider now, we got a 30-minute RSI reset, but not a divergence yet. Now, of course, the price does not always move just on divergences, right? There are other ways for the price to move, especially when a lot of liquidity is grabbed. It doesn't give you the time to form divergences. But ideally, if we get divergences, it's always the safest way to enter long positions. So if we get a divergence here at 2,591, I would consider a long position. But ideally, I would love this. I would really love this one here. Not sure if we get it, but I would really love this. But we discussed this yesterday as well, right? So nothing really changed in that regard. Of course, we got this pop from these bullish divergences that we saw yesterday, that Ethereum mostly retraced. I think the Ethereum Foundation also started selling some Ethereum today, so that's not good. A lot of outperformance from Ethereum relative to Bitcoin as well, which is failing to reclaim that 110, 112K area. So we'll be a bit patient. And by the way, we didn't really get higher time frame divergences in a long time, right? Like since this uptrend started. Look at the 4-hour. Not a single 4-hour RSI reset in weeks since April, basically. So I mean, it's logical because the market has been quite bullish, but this is something that I would love to see as well at some point. So we will see what happens. This betting is interesting. When will Trump end his tariffs against China? I don't know, man. I mean, If you want to be super speculative, is this like an exit door for Trump? If the court rules that tariffs are illegal, and then of course he finds a way to end this trade war by blaming others, basically, right? I mean, we don't know this. It's just pure speculation, and I hate speculating, but it's just a thought. Could be interesting, but definitely worth monitoring in the next few days. Yeah, so this is more or less it, guys, in terms of macro and stock markets. I mean, I don't want to go through indexes. We have discussed those on multiple time frames in the last few streams, and nothing really changed. Maybe one thing worth noting, I covered this in fundamentals and yesterday, and on my corner as well. I did a breakthrough of how I traded on lower time frames yesterday, right? So been giving some updates on USDT dominance, which gave us a really nice 1 hour divergence here yesterday, while we got confluence from that 30-minute divergence on Bitcoin. So did long some stuff here, which I round stripped, not gonna lie, just got stop break even on everything on this candle here. But for educational purposes, this is how I found long positions last night, and this is all that we can do right now, because as you can see, a USDT dominance just basically moving in a very tight range for weeks. So all we can do is find these lower time frame divergences. I didn't long here. We did get overbought, but I was pretty sure that this was gonna go for another peak, and the RSI would make a lower high, and this prints a bearish divergence. And then with Bitcoin printing that bullish divergence on the 30-minute, I did take some longs. So this is something you can do as well. If you're waiting for lower time frame opportunities, higher time frame, as I said, we didn't get a full 4 hour RSI reset in weeks. So I do see the possibility of this happening at some point. So if it happens around this area and we get a 4 hour RSI reset, I will consider some swing positions. A 4 hour RSI reset would be really, really nice. Not sure if we get it, if the market stays bullish, but that's what I've been looking at. Higher time frame, as I said yesterday, no need to replicate everything. Nothing has changed, regardless of the lower time frame chop. In the higher time frame, everything is very clear. And if we get this push down here for a 3 drive, I will be looking for swing shorts personally. And if I have longs open at that time, this is where I will be taking profits. Not going over the other charts and indexes. I think everything is very clear. We've covered everything, and just felt like I need to do a small update, as we had some developments in on the macro side of things and in stock markets. And since I did take some profits on my stock positions, I felt like I need to give a small update on everything. But if there's anything that you want me to cover, guys, anything to discuss, if you have any questions, let me know. But I don't wanna stay on too long. I'm a bit tired, stayed on charts for the entire day, basically. Let me go through the chat. Can you talk us through scalping? I didn't read your question, young list, but maybe this made some sense what I just covered with USDT dominance. But if not, then just let me know on the fundamentals if you have questions. Can you check CRWD? Yeah, what is that? Oh, wow, this has been on a ripper. I mean, this is in price discovery, right? But what can you say? Is there any divergence forming? Yeah, you could say. 12 hour. I don't know where you're in from. I mean, if you bought these lows, I would take some profits here. Because same as Tesla and Nvidia, this has printed this divergence on the 12 hour. And I personally never fade 12-hour divergences because they're very difficult to break and only rarely break, right? So could be taking some profits and then wait for an RSI reset before buying this. Now, where would I buy it? I think I like this area here. So maybe something around this something like this. If you get this, I think it's a really good buy, around $400. Your average is 220. Oh, wild! Wow, that's a nice entry, man. Yeah, I mean you're up like what, over 2x. I mean, everybody has their own strategies, right? There are people that buy stocks and hold them for 15 years as a hedge against inflation, right? And that makes total sense. And I do think that if you bought stocks in April, I think it's a very good entry actually to hold them for longer, because we basically got a weekly RSI reset on the S&P 500, right? And when did we get those? Usually around macro bottoms. So if there was one time in the last 5 years to enter long-term stock positions, I think it was April. But again, it depends on your strategy. I have a mix of wanting to have exposure towards liquid assets and not being fully in cash, but also wanting to trade them. So this is why, for instance, I sold 50% of Tesla, but holding the rest, right? Because you might be asking, well, if you're bearish or if you're short-term bearish on Tesla, if you have a 12-hour divergence on it, why are you not selling everything? And that's basically the answer, because I think we got a really nice entry. Long term, I see it going higher, as it always did, right? So for this S&P 500, I think it will do something like this in the next few months, going into next year. So I think we really got a nice entry to hold off some positions. But if you're in stocks with just trades and you got like a 50, 60, 70%, and you're saying, well, that's nice profits, yeah, of course, it makes sense to take profits, right? So it always depends on your strategy and your goals. It's a basic strat, but would rather be good to hear how you go about. I mean, I don't know if I have a strategy for scalping. I mean, my system is quite simple, right? I look at higher time frame or lower time frame resistance and support areas. Then I look at RSI and RSI divergences and POCs. Sometimes, but very rarely. I mean, honestly, I did use FIBs here for Ethereum for double confluence, but I rarely use FIBs, and I'm not a FIBs expert. I try to keep it very, very simple. I don't want to pretend like I know all of these tools, right, that I'm using to inform my system. But on the other hand, I'm also a higher time frame trader. So for me, simple support and resistance and higher time frame RSI and POCs is enough, right, to navigate the market. If you're like scalping 5-minute candles, yeah, then you can use, I don't know, imbalances or what else is there? FIBs, POCs, make a combination of different things, but that's not my system. That's not how I operate. Hey DB, how are you? I saw you close April. Is there any reason? Wasn't it long term? Yeah, as I said earlier, I saw this divergence on the S&P 500, the 12-hour divergence. First higher time frame divergence since this uptrend started. So just wanted to de-risk a bit. Sold a bit of Tesla, sold a bit of Nvidia, and just closed Apple in like 3%. and we'll look for better opportunities. So that's basically the reason. But long term, not concerned about Apple, if that's what you're asking. When would you consider Total 2 versus others as indexes for Confluence? Others, I use others when I want to trade mid caps. So say I wanna buy Sui or Tau, I use this. Say I want to trade Ethereum or more high caps, I use a Total 2. They move in the same direction, right? They're not super different. Like if you look at the higher time frame structure, for Total 2, it's almost identical. And just because of the strength of Ethereum, we didn't get this perfect retest of this zone here. Whereas if you look at others, the higher time frame structure is almost perfect, printing higher lows here, then breaking resistance, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. But I mean, if it really looks very identical. So, but that's the major difference. I also use others dominance if I want to find trades on mid caps, understand when capital can be rotated in and out of mid caps. I think this has been very helpful. Of course, when I see higher time frame divergences on others dominance, then I expect capital to rotate in and out of them depending on whether I see a bearish divergence or a bullish divergence. So that's the main difference actually. Hey Nori, good to see you, man. Hope you're having a good time in Miami. Yeah, so this is more or less it, guys. Very simple. I think everybody knows what I'm looking at, both on lower time frames as well as higher time frames. So not much to discuss. Already having my third macro stream this week, right? So we covered everything in detail. Can you take a look at DOT? I've been holding for months. I'll do this as an exception because usually I don't look at altcoins during my macro streams. But I'll do it. I'll do it this time. DOT, man, I don't know, man. I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't know why anybody would hold this. To be completely honest, I mean, it's been one of the weakest altcoins this cycle, right? It's still almost at bear market lows. So yeah, you can say, well, it's at an accumulation phase and it will go into expansion, but that's a very ambitious bet, if you ask me. And we have all these new projects coming in that attract attention, right? Like Sui, for example, that has been performing significantly better than something like Dot. But yeah, if you insist in holding it, I would look at the flip of this area here. I think this is an important level. Like flip above $5, $5.10, and maybe you can target some levels higher, potentially around here, $7. But again, I think you need to have a very strong reason to hold this, and if you don't have it, if it's just because it has been a strong performer last cycle, I think you should reevaluate, to be honest. Because the opportunity cost of holding these coins just increases as you hold them, right? I mean, look at Polkadot and then look at something like Hype. Oh man. Now there we go with our mouse losing connection. Let me just recharge it quickly and then I'll get back. But my point is, I mean, Hype did a 4x since April. Sui also did a 150% move. Tau did like a 3x, 2x, 3x, 3x, right? So at some point, you need to go back and just reevaluate your entire portfolio and see what's worth holding and what is not. I had to learn it the hard way personally. in the past. But luckily I did learn it. I learned to cut laggers rather quickly after they're not performing. And sometimes, of course, you can have coins that perform at a later stage, but you have to have a clear understanding of what could lead to a pump at some point. Like if you're holding on chain, for example, you know that the market needs to get more risk on, right? And that on chain coins perform well at the later stage. But for something like Polkadot, if it's not performing until now, I think it's time to question that. Dot ETF? I don't know, man. I don't think we get that. Why would you get a dot ETF? I doubt it. Hey DB, I just have a general question. When someone's day trading, is it recommended that you trade one position at a time? So just curious. It doesn't matter how many positions you trade in, as long as your risk is managed, right? You don't want to lose more than 3-4% of your entire portfolio in case that all trades go the wrong direction and hit your stop loss. Right? So it can be one trade where you risk 3-4% of your portfolio. It can be 3 trades. But what is important is that risk is managed. Should I rotate in something else even if I'm at loss? I mean, I don't know what your entry is if you're referring to Polkadot. It's always difficult to suggest to people to close something at a loss, right? So it's a decision that you would need to make if you want to cut something in loss or not. But I think you should go back and just check its performance and judge for yourself if something like this is worth holding. I mean, we've been through a bull cycle throughout this period, right? Let's not forget about that. So I would a shitty stock and to buy Apple, you close Apple. No point in asking for financial advice. Yeah, down to you. Yeah, exactly, man. Do you think Uni has the same performance as Dot or better? Let's check Uni. I mean, it's also a lagger. It's also a big lagger. But I think Uni is better than Dot, especially if the market gets more risk on and on-chain starts heating up again. That's one reason I would hold Uni over Polkadot personally. I wouldn't hold any, don't get me wrong, but if you want to compare the two, that would be my thesis. Also at bear market lows, man. You don't want to be holding something that's at bear market lows, guys. I mean, there's a reason why it is at bear market lows, right? Because there's no interest in these coins. And just because something was at 45 at some point doesn't mean it will go there again. In fact, for Uni, for example, to go back to this level, it would need a significantly higher market cap than it needed in 2021 because of all the token unlocks that happened here, right? Like Illuvium is a very good example of that. I'm just aware of the tokenomics, which is why I'm taking this as an example. So oh man, look at this chart. Wow, it's $14. Look at this, man. This is wild. So it was at 1,800. I don't exactly remember the market cap, but if it was to go here again, it would need like a market cap that's 15 times higher, at least, or 20 times higher than the market cap it had in 2021 because of all the token unlocks. So just a good example of why you don't hold on to laggers or coins that don't have a good narrative because they will get diluted. Yeah, always a good idea, Albina, to reevaluate your portfolio, right? No reason to hold into something that's not performing well. Yeah, sometimes cutting losses is tough. I agree with that, but sometimes it's also necessary. Like, I'll give you a good example. If you've been in Welcome a bit longer, you're aware of Azero. Oh man, it's at 3 cents. Can you believe that? That's unbelievable. But I did have a bag of Azero. I don't exactly remember my average entry, but it was somewhere around here, if I'm not completely mistaken. And then I know that I did sell in like 5% loss or something like that. But don't quote me on that. I mean, it's like over a year ago. But it was a good decision, right? Because look at what it did afterwards. Down 98%. I mean, I'm not saying that Polkadot will do this. I don't think so. But it's just a good example of why you don't hold on to laggers for too long. Just a general question. I missed the last cycle. Do you think we'll get same crazy pumps, especially now? No, I don't think so. I think that we will never see 2001 gains again, ever. Why do I think that? Very simple, and I'll explain that to you. First of all, compared to, let me just get rid of this. Compared to 2021, financial conditions and monetary conditions are significantly different, right? What does that mean? In 2020, we had the COVID crisis or the COVID crash, where we had global economic weakness, right? For example, the unemployment rate in the United States was 15%. And of course, the Federal Reserve couldn't let that happen, couldn't let markets just crash. And they went on and they reduced interest rates to almost 0%. And they bought back governmental bonds, they increased money supply significantly to fuel the economy. With all that money in the economy and with the cost of borrowing being zero, so you basically could take money from the banks and not pay any interest in it, that creates a very risk-on environment, right? Because you can literally buy anything and you know that you can borrow more money without paying interest on it. And of course that reflects in the price action of altcoins as well, which are the most risky or one of the riskiest asset categories, right? Today, interest rates are at one of the highest levels in history, or at least in recent decades, right? So the cost of borrowing money is very expensive, at least in the United States. So if you want to take out a loan, you have to pay a lot of interest, and that's used by the Federal Reserve to basically keep inflation in control, right? And of course, that reflects in the investment behavior of people, because if there's less money available, because the cost of money, borrowing money is higher, you're less inclined to speculate a lot of money into speculative assets, right? Which is exactly why altcoins have been not performing well, or at least not performing well compared to 2021. And I think as long as the macro remains uncertain, now with tariff discussions, with the fiscal crisis, with the national debt accumulated in the United States, and all the discussions going on with tariffs, I think Bitcoin will preserve its market share, and that will come at the expense of altcoins. Of course, in between, you have these bullish phases for altcoins. Of course, no doubts about that, like here or here. But I don't think we will get to these levels again. And apart from that, there's way more dilution in the market, right? There are all so many more altcoins in the market compared to 2021, and with less money being in the system because of what I mentioned relating to the macro, that money that is left needs to be spread across more assets, right? So there's less power to pump everything. You have to be significantly more selective. So that's my personal thesis on why I think that we will not see an alt season, at least not compared to 2021. But that doesn't mean that we will not get bullish phases for altcoins. But for that to happen, you need this area here cleaned at 300 billion. And then we can target this area here, 390, maybe even 450 billion. And this time would be some form of bullish phase for altcoins. So that's how I personally see it. Hey, Kevin, good to see you, man. Hope you're doing good. What about tax cuts? Will they be similar to interest rates cuts? No, I think they're different things, right? Tax cuts can fuel some economic growth in the short term. But if you've seen bond markets, there are also long-term concerns about inflation given tax cuts. But I think ultimately what will matter is tariffs. I don't think tax cuts will be super important. Yes, of course. I mean, if as I said, short term, it can be a catalyst for markets. If there's more money available for people, they can choose to speculate or gamble it away on financial markets. More money is always good. Markets are driven by liquidity, right? And there are different ways for money to come into the markets. That could be the Federal Reserve buying back governmental bonds, money supply increasing by various central banks around the globe. Doesn't have to be just the United States. Can be only sentiment, right? That drives liquidity in and out of markets without fundamentally anything changing on the macro side of things. Like at the beginning of April, we had a lot of outflows from financial markets purely based on sentiment, right? Here for the S&P 500. This happened because everybody thought a recession was coming. A recession wasn't happening here, right? This was all sentiment. This then happened when all people realized, well, we did overplay this because the US economy is still strong. So we actually did a mistake, right? So so sentiment shifting positively, bringing liquidity back. And then, of course, you had the dollar dropping. That is basically a means to capital rotation, right? From something like the dollar to something like stock markets or the crypto asset. But yeah, liquidity at the end of the day is very important. Look at the dollar, by the way. I did this perfect bearish retest that we talked about yesterday. Came into our box after we had that headline about that court decision and started dropping again today. I think ultimately it's at least coming down to this range lows here. Would make perfect sense. Also with what's going on the macro, could see the dollar dropping a bit more in the next few days and weeks. All right, guys. I'm wrapping it up. Was again longer than I expected. Did 3 macro streams this week, so everything should be clear. If not, I'm always on the fundamentals. You know that I usually respond very quick. I appreciate you guys for joining as always. I hope this is helpful. Hope my content is helpful. Let me know if you have questions, and have a really nice rest of the day and stay safe trading. Take care, everyone. Appreciate it, Shady. Thank you for joining. Take care, bro.